All right, we're going to try getting started and let us know, France, if you can hear us, and if not, we'll go from there. So, welcome. This is Jaslyn. She's from the Rochester Education Foundation, and she will be talking about resumes today. So, the floor is yours, Jaslyn.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm just going to share my screen. Um, Let me know if I need to speak up more too. I saw the little comments about the speakers. But yeah, I am Jaslyn. I am a college assistant at Rochester Education Foundation, as Hannah said. And so I work with a lot of high schools, not a lot, but like a good bit of high school students that are going into college, and I help them with their financial aid. This is actually my last week being there, but I have some information about the college help desk because they are year round and there are a couple of other assistants too. So today we're just going to talk about how to write a resume and cover letter. And we're going to go over what a resume is, what a cover letter is, and how you can build your own. Disclaimer, if you don't have a lot of experience, that is okay. We're going to talk about ways that you can just build your resume with very little experience, or just how to make it very concise and organized. Let me go next. So let's go over what a resume is not. It is not your autobiography. It is not your narrative. It isn't a list of job descriptions. It is a list of the jobs you may have had, but it is not like full-blown paragraphs of what they are. It is not an advertisement for what you want to put out in a position. Um, there are sections of it where you can like advertise for yourself that you are seeking a certain position, but it is not an advertisement. And it is not a one size fits all. So, for example, if you're going for a pretty specific position like a barista job, you want to have your resume be relevant to that position versus maybe like an accounting job. So, the wording might be different, but essentially your resume can be broken off into many little other resumes. And then it's not a vague document is meant to make the person you are trying to apply for to get to know you better. Essentially, it is not a skeleton document that someone might look at and think that they want to get to know you more, just because it is pretty much like a first impression. So say an employee is looking through a bunch of different resumes and they might not give a good glimpse at each one just because they're trying to find a concise and organized resume, and it's pretty much like a first impression. So what your resume is a demonstration of your experience that relates to a given position, the impact that you had from current and previous roles, your skills rather than your experience, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and your career goals, the value, and let me bring that there. Sorry, I'm trying to move everything. And more about the prospective employer than it is about you. And that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but essentially that means like you want it to be accommodating to that position that you are applying for. Even though this document is about you and what you have done, you want to showcase the things that you have done in previous places, and what you have learned and gained through them, and what you can give to another organization. So to move on about transferable skills, this is really good to think about if you don't really have a lot of experience, but these are skills that you acquire from school, internships. It doesn't say volunteer positions, but you could think about that as well, or any other work experiences, and you transform those as tools to adapt to a new job. So for instance, say you worked on like one project in the past, and think about like what your role is in that. Like, were you a team leader? Were you the problem solver? even if it wasn't a specific role you're given, like what did you do and how did you like build your skills in any of these? And transferable skills are pretty broad, but they can be really effective in a resume. So this is just a pretty good list to look back on. I will be sending this to Hannah so she can send this all out to you if you want to take a look. So let's start with from the top of the resume and build our way down. So a resume is pretty much different sections. Every resume looks different. So some might say in this example, like they have a section for selected skills and abilities, activities. It is entirely designated to you, but what I'm showing you is something pretty basic and something that you can start off first. So we'll start with heading, your executive summary or objective, education, experience, and additional info. And again, it's always good to start off with this, but it is totally fine to start making your own sections like selected skills and abilities, anything that you think would be best for you to show off what you have developed. So to start off, let's start with the heading. Have your name. You definitely want your name to be biggest and boldest. Underneath it, you'll have your address. So you no longer have to have your street required because it could be discriminatory. Hopefully the workplace that you are applying to won't be, but it's probably best not to put that on. And then your city and the jobs, hopefully close to the job's location. And then your phone and email, and make sure your email is appropriate. It's always good to have like first name, last name at Gmail or Yahoo, whichever you have. And then if you have a LinkedIn, then you may put that as well. All right, so the objective, this is optional, but this is also good if you don't really have a lot of experience too, because this is your way of highlighting like parts of your expertise or strengths, what you're seeking for, and something that can tailor the needs of the employer again. So essentially it's just like 1 or 2 statements. I've seen people have like probably like 3 sentences, but it's always good to keep that pretty short and concise. So I have a few examples here. So secure a responsible career opportunity to fully utilize my training and skills while making a significant contribution to the success of the company, to make use of my personal skills to achieve goals of the company. So you kind of get the understanding. It's a lot of like, I'm seeking for this position, or I want to secure this because I have XYZ. So pretty brief, but effective. And then we'll move on to education. So if you are an upcoming grad, you will want to put the date with expected or anticipated and when you will graduate. But if you have graduated, then you'll just put down the date and the year that you did. So underneath this, I should back up and say, at this point, when you start sectioning off, you will want to make like bullet points of each of your information. And by the end of this presentation, I'll show examples of that as well. So we could take a look at what a really clean resume looks like. But essentially, underneath education, you could put down any honors or awards you've gained, your concentration, coursework that's relevant to your job position, or anything else that you have done during school. And then if you have a 3.0 or higher GPA, you definitely want to put that down as well.
Can I just say something real fast, Jocelyn?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Yeah. So just as a also reminder for everybody that even though like you may have not graduated high school, maybe or not, you're still attending OASIS, and that counts as education. So you should add that onto your resume as well, to showcase that you are still going to school and attending an educational platform to get better and learn something. So also add that.
Yes, absolutely. And for experience, so this can be really broad, but it can also be pretty specific depending on what you have experience in. But again, if you do not have a lot, just leave it as experience and include any of what you've done. So being an Oasis, you could put down what skills you have done and maybe some volunteer work. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but what you'll have down here is the title, the place, city, state, and job description. It says use action words, which we will talk about a little bit more, and then some dates of employment. Oh, and I also want to mention just like highlighting titles, if you can kind of see the pattern of what they look like. So these sections are italicized and underlined, all that. As long as you have it pretty bold and concise with all the other sections, that should be good. Every resume looks very different. So, and then additional information. So say if like you have other skills and experiences that didn't really line up with the sections, you can put that under additional information. So say if you are intermediate or fluent in specific languages, that's something really good to put down. Or if there's any like awards or affiliations that you are a part of that you want to put down as well, that is also great. So resume action verbs are essentially ways to make your bullet points stronger and more concise without having to write down a lot in each bullet point and each of your information. So for example, hardworking is like not too strong of a word, but if you say I achieved something, that's a little bit, it's got a little bit more oomph to it. If you say excellent, that's okay. But if you say improved, you kind of get the gist of that, where it just sounds so much more like, yeah, I got this done, or it just makes it, it's a little less wordy too, I should say. And again, we'll look at some examples. I think visually it's good to look at. And then the next thing is a cover letter. So not every employer requires a cover letter, but it's essentially a one-page document that introduces your work history, professional skills, and personal interest in the job. So this is a really great way to advocate for yourself when you're going for a position that you don't have a lot of prior experience in, but this is your way of trying to show your interest and maybe getting a more, what's the word? Just having a better chance of getting that position. And then we'll go for a little bit about that. So you want to keep it to about like 3 to 4 paragraphs, having an opening, clearly write why you are applying, why you're interested. And then you have a body paragraph telling your story and showing off some of the skills and needs of the position. And then having a conclusion, restating why you're interested, thanking the reader for the time, and you look forward to hearing back to hearing from them soon. And then other considerations is to properly address the cover letter. So if you know the name, put it down. If you don't, say like dear hiring manager. And then some brand consistency, have the header of your cover letter as the same as the header of your resume. And then put the cover letter and resume in the same Word doc. And when you are downloading it or wherever, because you're most likely going to type up your cover letter or resume, make sure that the name or the title of it, however you're saving it, is your last name _ first name. So then when you send it over, most likely through electronically, that they see your last name, first name, and not just like resume, because that could be anybody's and they might graze over it just because it's it just says resume. So I thought it'd be really cool to take a look at some of the resources. So the first one's just resume examples, which I definitely want to show. So I have the tab open already, but this is a pretty good resource in my opinion. So even though these are undergrads, like college undergrads, these are still really good to look at like formatting. So I think the biggest make or break with resumes is consistency, organization, and the way it looks. I mean, it's sad because like you don't want to judge a book by its cover, but at the same time, you want to make sure that it looks very concise. So as you can see, education, work experience, like these are bold and they're aligned. Same with the dates as well. And as you can see, the bullet points, I keep referring to the bullet points, but it's better to just show. The bullet points are just the information you are trying to talk about underneath each section. So you can kind of see some of the action words: use, assess the needs, aided, answered, satisfied, maintained, all of that. So it really helps to look over other people's resumes just to see how you want to format it, but also just it's another reference for you. And of course, do not copy and paste anybody's. You want to make it as truthful as possible. But you do want to refer back to others just to see if yours looks just as concise and clean. Right. And then I also have resume action words. So that's a list that you can refer to. Another resource on how to write a cover letter that's a little bit less brief than what I have given. And then top 10 transferable skills. I think even though it's like top 10 best transferable skills, there's no best, but I think these are probably the most effective skills if you want to put that down as well. All right, so that concludes my presentation. Does anybody have any questions? This is the text line that you can text to reach a college assistant. I'm typically in charge, but I know it's going to be taken over by one of the other assistants. If you want to meet with one, we are having like a summer prep series. So the next coming dates are August 3rd and 10th from 2 to 5. So you will most likely meet Sarah and Brittany, and they're very, very nice, very approachable, happy to talk about college too.
And while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions.
So are you able to call your organization and set up private appointments if someone needs assistance with their resume then?
Yeah. So the text line here, you can't actually call, but you can text and say you want to set up an appointment. And then from there, we'll set up an appointment with you.
Okay, beautiful, awesome.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can't turn my video on, which is probably fine. It's a good idea. All you'll see maybe is me, but for some reason it's not working. So I have a student who has a question. Go ahead, Mr. Habibi.
Give us a hard copy of this information.
Oh, so I didn't know what the question was. He said, can you give a hard copy of this information? And Hannah had let us know that she can send it to us in an email.
Okay.
And then I can also, or she can print it up for you. Sure.
And we can also print out some of the resources that Jaslyn sent links to, so you can look at those as a reference.
So they can print out what the resources. He has another question. I know it's hard to hear. I don't know. I'm in a different classroom than I'm normally in, so I don't know the hardware.
That's okay.
The CV. That is correct, CV.
Yes. So the question is, we use a resume as a CV, and I don't know, Jocelyn, you may be familiar or not familiar, but
In our country, most people use the CV.
yes, most people use a CV.
Your background, my background, yes.
It's the same, but it's not the same. So you want to explain, Jocelyn?
So I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, do we use the resume as a CV? So in other countries, people use a curriculum. I never know if it's Vita or Vitae. And I explained to the students that they're actually different here, and that when somebody's asking for a resume, you do a resume. If someone's asking for a CV, you do a CV.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they are different. It seems that a CV is like a short written summary of a person's career versus a resume where it is not just the short written summary, but more of like a concise, like sectioned off of like what they have done, education, career, that kind of length. So I believe they are different.
I think, well, in other countries, I know they use CVs as resume. What I know CV to be different is that it's more for educators or people who published books or research journal articles or things like that. It's specific to like professors,
Mhm.
and they kind of give, or actors, like give a list of the works they've done.
Gotcha.
That makes sense? So, okay, does that answer your question?
Yes.
So you guys will give me your CV, but we'll convert it into a resume format, which, because it is different.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about, you might have said it and I could have missed it. A lot of students come from countries where they put their religion, their marital status, their age,
Mhm.
I just
So-
their birth date.
So I believe that the birthday isn't required on there. I think that if anything, you could put down your religion under like additional information, especially if you want to make sure that your workplace is inclusive and they are accommodating to that. I think that's important for your employer to know. If they think that that is an important aspect of them that they need them to know, I recommend putting that down. In terms of age, I don't think you really need to put your age down. I don't think I've really seen that in resumes. And with marital status, I've never really seen that in resumes either, but I mean, I haven't taken a look at like a bunch of different resumes. But if you also think that's an important aspect you want to put down, I suggest putting it in additional information too.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And just a little tidbit on top of that. I know things are changing in the US. We had a standard for a resume, but the world is changing and you are starting to see people add photos of themselves on the resume. I don't mean, Jaslyn, you can speak up if you want, but I was always told not to do that because that's giving, it's kind of, it's allowing someone to discriminate against you by seeing your face. And like Jaslyn said, like you're judging a book by its cover, like that you're giving the employer the opportunity to look at you and say, oh no, I don't want you part of our company, rather than looking at the skills that you have. And this goes for anybody. So we always recommend not to add a photo just to be safe. And the resume is to look at what you've done, not you as a person. So when you go to the interview, that's when you can showcase who you are. So it's like Jaslyn said, the first impression of what you've done job wise, and that's what they're interested in first.
No, I agree. Actually, my workplace right now said that they have gotten resumes with pictures on them, and like I don't know what turned and said that that's okay now, but I agree with Hannah that it's probably best to not do that to avoid any type of biases. I mean, you would hope that wherever you are applying to wouldn't do that, but you just want to be safe that they won't pick you based on the picture and not your resume. Because say you have a sparkling resume and then you have a picture and then they're like, which is wrong. But yeah, I agree with Hannah. Be safe, don't do that. Is there any other questions?
Nope, we're good. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, feel free. I will send everything to Hannah again with the resources and everything. So those could be printed off. I think that's really smart to do. And yeah, feel free to text the text line. It's mainly me. Even if you have any like college questions or financial aid questions, I'm here for that. But thank you so much for having me. It was really great.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.